you and your mind. So Douglas Kruger is with us, and he's written many books on that you need to read them, self-help about your life that are very, very practical. And we put a challenge to Douglas about managing your time, managing that day-to-day discipline that I think everybody battles with. Douglas, tell us how we go about doing it. Good chatting to you firstly.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be back. Thanks, Ashraf. Well, we're always talking about goals when we talk about time management. It's about making the most of your life and accomplishing the things that you want to do. And our starting point, and this is going to sound a little bleak, but bear with me.
Right.
One of the things that I observe in the book, Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor?, is that we can work backbreakingly hard our entire lives and never actually become wealthy. And that's quite a thought provoker because it hints at the idea that we can be incredibly busy without being very effective. Okay. So what I've done for today is I'm not interested in a very complex system or anything that's difficult to remember. I'm sharing with you things that I do in my own world in order to get books written, to travel effectively, to run your own business.
To meet deadlines. Keeping in mind there's only one thing finite, which is time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we're all ears. Go ahead.
So this is simple and practical, but in my world, I find this works. And what I did was I did a bit of soul searching and head scratching, and I broke it down to 3 key principles and then a handful of tips to go along with them. Now, the principles are what guide us, so let's start with the very first one. The first one is orientation.
And I'm tweeting while I'm talking to you, by the way.
So you're not just ignoring me and not making eye contact.
Yeah, absolutely.
I felt all unloved, Ashraf.
Right, go ahead and tell us.
Okay, so the first one that we need, now, the interesting thing here is that all 3 principles are necessary, but we need them at different points in time. So they seem to contradict each other, but it's the progress as we go along.
Okay.
The first one is just the orientation. In other words, we need to ask ourselves, what genuinely matters to us? And this one is quite visceral, emotional, and human. In other words, we need to say, what do I want my life story to look like? It's as simple as that and as broad as that. You don't want to be applying, for example, for jobs that are not your passion or not your desired route in life. You don't want to be working hard at things that keep you busy but are not going in the direction of valid goals for you. And that takes an incredible amount of discipline because our life throws enough busyness at us each day to keep us from our goals.
Okay, so that orientation, which is literally sitting on your own, not by the seaside, wherever you want to be, even in your back
Stars, seaside, next to the N1, whatever you prefer.
Interview with yourself.
Interview with yourself. What do I want in the story of my life? So that's the orientation. Okay. Now, the next one of our 3 principles is the motivation, and that's whatever sets the fire in the first instance. Right. But here's an interesting thought for you to consider. Motivation does not last, and we can actually burn ourselves out and exhaust ourselves if we try to be motivated all the time. So let's take a step back here and say, so what sets fire to your soul in the first instance? What gets you going? By way of an example, I like the idea of being a prolific writer. And I always think of, there was an author from the last century, James Michener, and he used to write these huge epic novels where he would pick a country somewhere in the world, start at the dawn of time, and then work through a set of characters, a lineage, and or maybe a family, all the way up to the present day. Okay. And his books were incredibly high quality and award-winning. And he was once interviewed about just how prolific a writer he was. And he used a phrase that has always given me goosebumps, and I think if you're an aspiring writer, this one will appeal to you. He spoke about a period of an almost indecent display of productivity. And at the time, he was writing 7,000 words per day.
Indecent, I'm going to repeat it.
An almost indecent display of productivity. Now that gives me goosebumps, that gets me focused. And if you're a writer, this will mean a great deal to you. For anyone else, it's meaningless numbers. He wrote 7,000 words a day. Now, if you are an aspiring writer and you have a context for that, I can tell you right now, Ashraf, those individuals listening, their pupils have just dilated and their jaws have dropped. Mm-hmm. Now, I can write 7,000 words in a day once. I've done it before. But to do it day after day after day, that is beyond remarkable. I mean, that's in a different stratosphere. But the point is, that's the thing that I think of when I want to motivate myself. But to think about that day after day after day is exhausting. So motivation in and of itself, it's great to get you going. It's the initial push. But you exhaust yourself if you try to use it as a technique every day. So that brings us to our 3rd principle, which is very simply discipline. And discipline is almost the exact opposite of motivation. It's going to the gym even when you don't feel like it. It's basically switching off the emotional human side of your brain.
So discipline is not motivation.
It is not motivation. It's very different.
To go to the gym, even though I'm exhausted. That's not motivation.
Yeah.
It's discipline.
Discipline.
Sticking to a task.
Exactly that. So the way that I look at it is motivation gets you going, but it doesn't keep you going necessarily. Beyond a certain point, you actually need to simply go through the motions to get things done. You need to go to gym when you don't feel like it. You need to write your 7,000 words when you don't feel like it. And you need to follow whatever your plan is for your goals, even on the days where it feels a little bit hopeless. You might feel like you're walking through the desert during a drought, and you don't necessarily have to continue to believe that you'll make it to the other side of the desert. You have to switch off your own brain and simply keep walking.
So what then okay, here's the question. Does motivation keep you disciplined?
You do occasionally need it. You know, from time to time, when the discipline kicks out, go looking for more motivation. Let's take the gym example.
Right.
So you watch a couple of YouTube videos of some of the stars of bodybuilding, and that gets you fired up. And for the first 10 days, you're going to gym and thinking, I want to be like that. But a month or two down the line, you really are into the discipline phase, where it's go even if you don't feel like it. 3-4 months down the line, the discipline might be starting to wear off. So there you jump back to motivation, get online, watch some videos. And here's one of the keys to real motivation. There's a lot of research behind this. It's about identity. So you want to see someone that you look at and go, I want to be like that. And Ashraf, we could spend days talking about the research done on that one, but that's what it boils down to. Real motivation works on the same principle as a small child looking at mom, looking at dad, and going, wow, I want to be like that.
Or while you gave that person a toy, I want the same toy. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But that is the heart and soul of motivation. It's always identity based. It's very rarely about how much money we can earn or whatever the case might be. Even if you look at money, it's I see myself living the story as a result of the money. It's not the money itself. And that's incredibly important when you motivate yourself, your children, and coach others.
Okay, so once we've got out of you're saying those three are critical. If you don't get that,
those three
the next
have
step
to be
doesn't
there.
really matter. Right?
Aim
Now
yourself
we
in
get
the right direction with orientation, that's number one. Motivate yourself with whatever sets fire to you, which is always identity based. And then it's the discipline that says, I have a system set up that keeps me going even when I don't feel like it.
Okay, now we move on.
Cool.
4 tips, right?
Handful of tips. So this is how I practically go about getting a lot done during the day. I live by and I swear by to-do lists. And the one that I'm using at the moment is a simple little app, and it's free. It's called AnyDo. And all it is, it's
And I want to make
literally...
a note of it. Carry on.
Yeah, AnyDo. And I've downloaded that onto my phone and onto my laptop, and the two sync up, which is rather nice. So if, for example, I'm out on the street or on a treadmill at gym, whatever the case might be, and something pops into my head, an item I need to do that day or tomorrow, I can write it down on my phone, it'll be on my PC when I get home, and vice versa. But you don't need the tech. I mean, scroll it on a piece of paper if you will. The act of writing it down is important, and you need to keep track of it. Now, here's something that I've discovered after years of tinkering with to-do lists, which is, in fact, how I manage my daily life. I've discovered that the ideal number of to-do items for any day is definitely no more than 5, and ideally just 3.
I was just going to ask you, how many on that to-do list?
3 per day is pretty good. I remember listening to a podcast of an author from the United States who wasn't selling terribly well in his market at the time, and he set himself a challenge to do 3 things per day to sell his books. And over the course of a half year or so of experimenting with this, one of the things he did got his books into the Chinese market and made him a multi-millionaire. And he also, I mean, that's a wonderful example of, but just that 3 things per day, it's manageable, it's repeatable, and it is incredibly effective. I mean, if you do 3 things per day consistently, that's 15 per week, or 60 things per month, or 720 items per year.
So what 3 things are planned for? What are the only 3 things you're doing for today?
Oh, well, I'll give you my 3. I use 2 layers of 3 things. So I set 3 massive goals for the year.
Right.
And I'll share them with you. My first one is to achieve a distinction in the speaking world called your Certified Speaking Professional, which is through the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. Now, I've applied for that and I'm going through the process. My second one is to get my own books onto Audible. And I actually got that right the other day. Yay! So that's coming soon. And the third one is to write the next book, which would then be published next year. I haven't started that one yet, but I'm very conscious of where we are in the year, and I've got enough time left for that. So I do that on an annual basis, and then as a microcosm, I do it on a daily basis as well. 3 items per day, and they must be items that move you towards your goal.
Those 3 big goals.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay, now what about, I mean, I've got 15 phone calls to make. How range from phoning the doctor, phoning the school, phoning the chemist, where does that fit into your 3 things to do?
And they must be done as well. And that's why I said sometimes up to 5 and not much more than that. If you really have important things like phone calls to make, I would call them one item, which is make my phone calls. Yeah, mind map, and then little line coming out there saying doctor, wife, whatever the case might be. But you do want to keep that low. And the trick there, and this is what the struggle is all about, is that you can get so overwhelmed by call to the doctor, send the email to this person, respond to that you don't get time for your goals. You have to be ruthless about this one. Sometimes it's okay if the small incidentals fall by the wayside while you pursue your goals. And that's a personal discipline issue, and it's a hard one.
Okay, time's against us. I thought I'd just tell you that. In terms of what we're talking about now, let's run through the balance very quickly. You said avoid traffic, yeah?
Okay, second one, avoid traffic. Other than any actual event at which, say, I'm the first guest speaker, I won't meet anyone until at least after 9:30. And that can make a distinction of an hour in each direction in Johannesburg traffic. And I added that up. I mean, an hour, 2 hours lost per weekday. That's 10 hours lost per week, 40 hours lost per month, 480 hours lost per year. That's significant. It brings us to our third one, which is fill in dead time with audiobooks. Now, why would I speak about that when we're discussing time management? Well, because all time management is related to goals and accomplishing what you need to do in life. And books provide you with those levers for becoming exponentially more effective at whatever you do. They carve years off your learning curve, which of course is a time-saving technique. So, whenever you're bored, if you're stuck in traffic, you're on the treadmill at gym, you're making love to someone and it's particularly boring, listen to a book. So
unless you tune into Afternoon Talk and you've got Douglas Kruger as my guest, then tune in to the station. All right, got that. And the very last one?
Last one, end each day with a 5-minute review. So this is just context. You want to ask yourself, what worked? What did I accomplish out of my, say, 3 to 5 goals for today? What's left over? And what didn't work about how I managed my time today so that I can do a better job tomorrow? You'll find you sleep better at night.
I'm going to try douglaskruger.co as the website. Just give me that app once again.
AnyDo.
AnyDo, and I'm going to ask you to tweet that as well.
Will do.
And make some time around the Douglas Kruger. Your time's up, all right? Thank you.